Hello, and welcome to Humanities Matter, brought to you by Brill. I am Emily Tamkin, and this week we will be looking at key issues in the field of humanities. I'm speaking with Dr. Adeyemi Balogun. He is at the University of Bayreuth and is the author of the paper, When Knowledge is There, Other Things Follow, the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria and the Making of Yoruba Muslim Youths. Adeyemi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Emily.
So to start out, how did you decide to write this paper, and how was it, or to what extent was it an extension or outgrowth or logical next step of your other work?
I started to write this paper in 2016. But the paper actually is part of a bigger project, which is my PhD at the University of Bayreuth. And I wrote this paper as my own presentation at a conference in the UK in 2016. And after the conference, I got a lot of feedbacks. I presented it in other academic gatherings here in Bayreuth, and I improved on the paper, and this is the results of that paper. Secondly, this paper develops from my own curiosity about the changes in the expression of Islam in Southwest Nigeria over the last 20 years. There has been a remarkable transformation, especially among young Muslims, in how they dress, in their consciousness to religious knowledge and Arabic language, and also in their followership of new Muslim organizations. Now, this Muslim organization that I talked about, many of them are Salafi-oriented with connections outside Nigeria. And we see a lot of young Muslims who have been attracted to this organization. So I've been curious about this kind of transformation that has been going on in Yoruba land and generally in Nigeria. And I think it's something that is very interesting for researching on, considering the fact that we are talking about a multi-religious society. And for us to see a new form of religious consciousness growing on in that context, I think it is something that is worth researching on. And in a way, this paper is also an aspect of my present and future work. My other work focused generally on the history of Muslims in Yoruba land, and by extension, Muslims in Nigeria and other parts of Nigeria. So this is basically what the paper, this is how it goes up.
Right. So, okay. So before we get to the paper, just to give our listeners some background, could you speak a bit about the extent to which, so the Yoruba community, as you write, is religiously mixed. There's Muslims and Christians. Could you speak a bit about the extent to which that is a point of tension, or isn't, and why?
For the most part, religious difference has been the norm in Yoruba society. Among the Yoruba, for instance, you will find people of different faiths in the same nuclear or extended family. And this attitude can be traced to the period before Islam and Christianity entered Yoruba land. There's a popular saying among the Yoruba that is used to emphasize this attitude to religious difference. The Yoruba word is Ejeki Onifa Bofa, Ejeki Olosho Boshun, Kayeba Gungege. Now, what that means is, let the Ifa devotees worship the Ifa, let the Oshun devotees worship the Oshun, so that the world will become a better place.
Right.
Now, this way of thinking allows religious difference and diversity to thrive among the Yoruba. With the coming of Islam and Christianity into Yoruba land, this attitude to religious diversity was and continued to be sustained. Yet, in spite of this attitude, religious difference has often led to clashes in Yoruba community, even though the magnitude of these clashes has been minimal compared to northern Nigeria. And I'm sure you are familiar with the cases of the Boko Haram.
Yeah, of course.
So, for instance, also in Yoruba land, there have been cases of violence between traditionalists and Muslims, and between Muslims and Christians. Religious tensions have also been witnessed in interreligious marriages and in politics. Therefore, despite their consciousness to tolerate each other's faiths. The tolerance among the Yoruba of different religious faiths often collapse, and we have seen different cases of this.
So if we could speak more specifically about the paper, the movement that you focused on in your paper is, it started, you write, in 1954. What was significant about that year?
What is significant about 1954 is it's not very straightforward. The year itself in which the MSS was found, which is a movement I talked about, is very significant for a number of reasons. And for us to understand this, we need to also look at the wider context of the history of the Yoruba Muslims and the British colonial rule in Nigeria. The colonial rule, for instance, facilitated a massive transformation in social, economic, political, and cultural life of the Yoruba. And there are three aspects of this transformation that are directly related to the history of the movement that I talked about. First, the colonial system encouraged the emergence of Western schooling that allowed Muslim students to meet and formed the MSS in 1954. Now, the idea to form the MSS actually developed in these schools. Secondly, there were new forms of associations that were enabled by colonial rule. These associations, which could be political, cultural, recreational, religious, or economic in orientation, all emerge as parts of the consciousness of modernity which the colonial rule brought and the social interaction of the new colonial order. The MSS also emerged as part of that colonial associational line. Thirdly, the colonial system created a social context in which economic and political opportunities were open to many Yoruba, thereby allowing interreligious encounter to thrive among them. Part of this encounter saw people of different faiths borrowing from one another, participating in each other's religious tradition, converting to each other's religion, and even competing among themselves. And to a certain extent, the MSS is an example of this phenomenon. So in this regard, the year 1954 can be considered as embodying the experiences of the Yoruba Muslims in the colonial period. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, so, this was a religious movement, but you write about in your paper how they also passed on socioeconomic skills to the broader population. And I was wondering if you could speak a bit about if you see there being advantages or disadvantages to those skills having been learned through a religious as opposed to a secular avenue.
Yeah. This question can relate to the discussion on the relationship between religion and the secular society. Yeah. But if I were to answer this question, I'll say that there are many advantages when religious activities are employed to promote skill acquisition, socioeconomic skills acquisition. And we need to understand that the movements I talked about in this paper also consider socioeconomic skills for a modern society as part of what it takes to be a Muslim. Also, this movement itself is aware that learning such skills is needed for the survival of Muslims in contemporary world. So, using religious activities to promote skill acquisition can help, believers, not just Muslims, many believers, to negotiate their religious and economic life better.
People of faith more broadly, it doesn't have to be Muslims, but
yes. And many of them through these activities often learn valuable work ethics that can be useful for their professional life. And we have seen this in many studies. For instance, the study by Max Weber, who emphasizes how the Protestant work ethic was very instrumental in wealth acquisition and also leading to the formation of the capital system. So religious activities generally, I consider it to be very important and to play a very useful role in socioeconomic skill development in the society today. Yeah.
Mm. I have been speaking with Dr. Adeyemi Balogun. He is at the University of Bayreuth in Germany, and his paper, When Knowledge is There, Other Things Follow, The Muslim Student Society of Nigeria and the Making of Yoruba Muslim Youths, can be found in the publication Islamic Africa. Adeyemi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Emily.